Hello everyone. On this board from Adventures today we have Transmogrify and the events are Mission and Raid. My opponent opened with Transmogrify with 5 coins. On this board, big players are Ambassador, there's Stonemason as well. Golem can enable an engine if you can get enough tournaments plus the Trusty Steed in your deck, which is something I'm angling for, thinking about as what I want my deck to look like. So I'm going to try to build this golem engine and see if it works out. But I know it's ambitious and it may not work out, so I'm going to see how things go as the game goes along. I open tournament in accordance with that plan. Also, I want to get prizes, which is why I open with the tournament. My opponent gets Stonemason to accompany their Transmogrify, and I get an Ambassador here. So I see my Ambassador turn 3, which is excellent. My opponent manages to buy their first tournament there. I return a couple coppers, so this is a good start for me so far, I think. So just to go back to my idea for the game, it was to build the engine with Golem and to get a lot of tournaments plus the Trusty Steed. I think the Trusty Steed is the most important prize on this board. You can deal with followers to an extent, but Trusty Steed is the only true source of plus actions, which I think is valuable here. On 4, I pick up a second tournament, which is often 2 is usually the number you want for tournaments in your deck, usually, not all the time. Anyways, my opponent manages to transmogrify an estate here into a silver. I thought it would have been an ambassador at that point, but it was a silver, and it allows my opponent to pick up a gold. Gold is not bad. It is helpful to hit province. Here my ambassador shows up at the top of a shuffle and returns a couple estates. So far things are going quite well. I pick up a silver here because my opponent doesn't have an ambassador, so my single ambassador should be able to thin me out quite well. I don't need to pick up a second ambassador is what I'm saying. However, in response, my opponent picks up their first ambassador here on turn 6, so that's something I have to look out for, just to keep in mind. On 5 here, I have a couple choices. I considered Catacombs, maybe Transmogrify. However, I don't know how to use Transmogrify, so I just stayed away from the card this game. That may or may not be good. Transmogrify is an excellent utility card. You'll see my opponent make quite good use of it throughout this game. So here I pick up a third tournament, which is somewhat risky, somewhat doubtful also, but I figure I need the money to get to province. And if I want to build this golem engine, well, I need more tournaments than just the 2, I think. So here I am hit with ambassador for the first time, I believe, getting an estate. So hopefully now with these couple silvers in my deck, I'm able to get to province. So I play 2 tournaments and I come up with 7, which is a bit disappointing, but it's okay. I'm able to pick up a gold, and I think I have enough treasure in my deck now to hit province very soon. Here, my opponent uses Transmogrify on Stonemason to get a silver and comes up with 8. So they get a province immediately, and my tournament is blocked immediately here. So I'm just able to return this estate. On 3, there's nothing worthwhile that I want, so I just pass here. So here you'll see that not only does my tournament get blocked, but my opponent manages to line up tournament and province first, even though their deck is quite a bit bigger than my deck. So that's a bit disappointing for me here. I was really hoping to get the Trusty Steed, but I'll have to work around this. Without the Trusty Steed now, these engine plans sort of go out the window. Especially now that my opponent has the province and I don't, so the tournaments are less good at this point. So I have to kinda reconsider what I want to do here. On 7, I spend a bit of time thinking about what to do. I opt for mission, just to try to clean up my deck a bit here. I get rid of 2 estates. I can't buy anything except raid, so I just pass my mission turn here. My opponent comes up with 9 for another province. So these my tournaments are now looking very shaky. However, they managed to get through this time and managed to get me to province. So once I have one province, I know I can work with that, get prizes. So that's okay for me. My opponent uses Transmogrify again on an estate and will pick up a second ambassador at this point. So that's reasonable, I think. Here I will be able to get a prize. And through these last couple of turns, like I said, I was reconsidering the engine strategy, and I realized that I would have to play differently. Especially after this point, I go for the followers here, and really it is mostly to make my opponent discard down to 3 cards. I felt that I needed to attack my opponent a bit energetically here to have a chance of winning this game, because they seemed to be quite a bit ahead, getting those 2 provinces very quickly. So I opt for the followers. I managed to get up to province here, which is good. So we level on the provinces right now. Not sure about the estates because Ambassador has been chucking a few back and forth, and now there's curses involved plus the followers, so I'm not too sure. My opponent here goes for Stonemason and overpays to get tournaments, which is kinda doubtful to me because I have 2 provinces and a somewhat thinner deck, so they're a bit more likely to be blocked than mine are. However, it is what it is, so I wasn't too unhappy to see that play. I play followers for a second time, and here is where I decide to go for a more money oriented approach. I know that followers is going to junk me as well as my opponent, so I need to flood my deck with treasures to compensate for that. The engine is out of the question at this point. So this is why I buy raid. It attacks my opponent and it also gives me silver. And just like the relic attack, it seems innocuous. Oh, it is innocuous, but I think it is quite disruptive. I managed to get the bag of gold last turn. Again, consistent with the treasure flood idea. These tournaments make it through but only get me up to 7. There's no silver in play, so I don't want to buy a raid here. I only want to buy the raid when I can get both the attack in and the silvers, or at least 1 silver anyway. So I get duchy with half the provinces gone, which seemed reasonable at the time. My opponent on 4 here picks up even more tournaments, which, like I said before, I think is a bit dubious. Here on 5 with a silver in play, I'll get a raid, no problem. I block my opponent's tournament, so that is good for me. With this 6, like this is 2 silvers, so it's almost automatically a raid. And at this point here, I can start to consider going for duchies with the increased treasure in my deck. Followers draws his bag of gold dead here, which is not ideal, but I still get up to 8, so now I'm 1 province ahead plus 1 duchy ahead, and I plan to hit the duchy pile very hard this shuffle. My opponent picks up princess, which is a decent prize, and on 5 here goes for a stonemason overpay to get the last 2 tournaments. So they have, I think, 7 tournaments. As the decks get bigger, it gets a bit better. I won't have the tournament, the province to block all the time, but 7 seems a bit much to me. Anyways, these tournaments make it through luckily, and I'm able to pick up province number 4. So I'm looking in decent position at this point. Here, oh, also my opponent managed to stonemason twice on that last turn to get a Transmogrify and a Marauder. So in light of the Marauder, I pick up a gold on my previous turn, because I want to just be able to get these 2 provinces very quickly before the Marauder puts a halt on my plans. So I get a raid here, and then on this reshuffle, now I'm going to go for the duchies, hoping that my deck will be kind to me at some point and give me enough money to pick up at least one of the 2 remaining provinces. It almost does that here. I have 7 and not 8. 8 would have been excellent. My opponent uses Transmogrify to get silver out of an estate here and picks up 2 duchies, so they're playing this penultimate province game here, which is fine. I block a tournament and now I'm getting back some of the curses that followers put in. So not a good couple of turns for me so far, only able to pick up an estate here. Here my opponent manages to get a duchy and trash a curse. Here these tournaments make it through and I see a province to pick up a duchy. Diadem isn't really worth it at this point. And here I have to go for this province, not have to go, but I go for the province. I think I'm decently ahead to look for the end of the game. My opponent picks up the last duchy, so 2 piles are out, but the 3rd pile is nowhere near unless Stonemason has something to say about that. So with 6 here, I buy a mission because I know my followers is in the last 9 cards, so hopefully I can get that attack in at the very least. My opponent blocks this tournament, however, and I just buy a raid on 6. I don't think the estate would matter, so I choose to get 3 more silvers to hopefully pick up province on this reshuffle. My opponent gets the last prize, which is the diadem, decent enough. Here I have 7 again. Since about the 3rd time for the game I have 7, but at this point though, you have to go for the estate, even though my opponent has Transmogrify on the mat and they have the princess, so they can pick up the last 2 estates and end the game. I wasn't sure if I was ahead, so I was a bit hesitant to get that estate, but here I'm able to pick up the province and pick up the win. So thank you for watching. Leave feedback